My greatest joy is telling stories. I love telling stories. I also like to write poems, especially inspirational poems. Poems that will stir some inspirational feelings in people. And you will see from the books that I've written, that is the case. I love writing poems also. But stories, that's my thing. I like to bring back the past, that which we experienced. And to me, our stories are just as important as those we read in Greek mythology. Yes, I love writing stories and telling stories. And so I'll tell you a story today. Stay tuned. I'll start with some of the things, the words, the expressions that Grandma was famous for. Listen. Grandma used to say, drunk or sober, mind your business. Never put your mouth in husband and wife business. Tom drunk, but Tom no fool. When dog have money, boy dog eat cheese. So-called friends run away from you when your pocket is empty. Remember that. All skin teeth is not laugh. All shut eye is not sleep. Show me your company, I will tell you who you are. Eggs have no right in Rockstone dance. What eggs doing there? Never put mongoose to guard chicken. When mouse play around puss jaw, pussycat jaw, mouse will end up in puss craw. The higher a monkey climb, the more its bam bam become exposed. Dog don't make cat. When goat shit ready to roll, any slight breeze would do, meaning that when someone wants to do something, all they need is a little excuse. Goat shit on a hill and a little wind blow, goat shit gone down the hill. When your neighbor house is on fire, common sense dictates that you wet your own. Something about donkey. Donkey is long, but donkey never hear its own story. People hearing story about everybody, but their own story, boy, they ain't hearing that at all. Stop coming, and come. Stop coming and come. And now, two elderly men sat down and reflected. And don't know them, because they knew about ship sail fast. How many men on deck? Who remembers that? Wrong doves and mommy and daddy game. You ever play mommy and daddy game when you were small? Spinning top in the road, Betush and Lally in the drain, spinning cutter, pitching marbles in the hot sun, hide and seek, skipping rope, stick 'em up game. At Christmas time, we used to play stick 'em up, but we never kill anybody. Rolling tire, and what about rolling bicycle rim? Floating onto a tube in the seawater. It used to be nice. One time I floated and I floated right into a patch of black sea egg. Riding scooter. And policemen like Boragi and them, boy, they never used to like to see us riding scooter. Them old men remember all that. Flying kite, playing jacks, yo-yo, pushing carts with balls wheel, making carts with balls wheel. The bearing, skipping rope, playing with turtle in the dirt. Nancy's story, hula hoop, Nancy Story in the Moonlight, of course, playing cockfight with Kokioko. Bamboo busting, you know that bamboo busting came all the way with the Indian immigration, the immigrants brought bamboo busting to Grenada. Hopscotch, onesie, snake and ladder, setting crab traps and fish pots, stolen mango, we used to stone mango, sculling school, lantern at All Saints time, All Saints night when we visited the cemetery. Riding scooter I mentioned before, flogging at school with a leather strap, and the teachers used to like to say, I'm giving you 6 of the hottest. Mr. J.W. Fletcher had a strap called the Conqueror. He used to conquer all those who misbehaved. And now to the 2 old men who sat and reflected. Well, when you get old, what else you going to do? You think on the old time days. So 2 retired Grenadian men sat down to their favorite game of dominoes. They had long hung up their working boots, so they sought to liven the days by an occasional gathering for some brango and an exciting game of cards. It was many years since they left the Isle of Spice, but the memories of the time spent there still lingered in their minds. The years of residing in the cold did nothing to cloud the thoughts they harbored of the place of their birth. They were always eager to hear of developments, not only in Grenada, what was going on there, but the entire Caribbean, cricket matches, etc. Occasionally they made a trip home, but for some, yes, they made a trip home for some relaxation and to meet friends and family who had not yet kicked the bucket. They played their game and their minds journeyed back into time. They pulled back memories of a time they once knew so very well. I sat on a chair, I was younger then, and observed as they knocked the dominoes on the table, sporadically pausing to take a drink of strong rum, Rivers and Clark's Court, from one of the bottles that lay on the table. I sat there and paid heed to the voices of experience. This is important, eh? I hear everybody talking about, yes, young people, yes, good. Young people have their time. Look at the African society and the importance of the elders with the experience. Don't knock them. Don't shove them aside. They have words of wisdom, which you can do well. That's you, the young people. You can do well to listen and learn. There's an old African saying, if you want to know about the forest, ask an old gorilla coming back from the forest. So I sat on the chair and observed as they knocked the dominoes on the table. You see, when they left Grenada in the 50s, I believe, the island was still a British crown colony. The donkey cart was a popular method of transportation, and the Queen's Birthday Parade was a yearly celebration. Those Grenadians who served in the World War, the West Indian Regiment, fighting for the mother country, so-called mother country, marched in the parade and proudly displayed their medals. Only the big shots drove fancy cars back then, what was looked upon as fancy cars that rumbled down the streets of Grenada. They recalled the happy feeling they experienced when they were fortunate to get a lift, the bomber ride, we say bomber ride, Popa ride, in a car owned by an estate owner. And the estate owners were the ones that had the money back then, or businessmen, or some other well-to-do person. They mentioned how favored they felt when they rode in the cars. The drop, when they get a drop in a car, it was sometimes a reward for climbing a coconut tree and picking coconut for the owner of the vehicles, or for doing some other work. They reward you with a drop. You get a lift in a car. Now, one of the two friends, a man called Bogart, well, he had journeyed to England. The other, Cecil, initially settled in Harlem before residing in Brooklyn, New York. They met again, two jovial souls, always laughing, spreading joy, whose minds were active and who, at times, seemed to possess the energy of the great Grenadian footballer called Peter Pongda. I heard he was such a great footballer. I listened to them as they resurrected ancient happenings of the days in the Isle of Spice. The stories were many and varied and followed no set order or pattern. It was a little of this and a little of that, but the old talk was never dull or boring. They played their cards, drank their grog, their rum, and mentioned whatever came to their mind, and I sat there and listened. They brought up stories of the film show that was shown in the Market Square in St. George's, mixed with memories of torching crab on the rainy Grenadian nights. They spoke of the popular fishing site in Palmis, known as the Dig. You ever went to the Dig? Where Manico and Tattoo were also caught. Why, Bogart had such a good memory, he even recalled the name of a dog that traveled with him on his hunting trips. I laughed when they spoke of the coconut fiber mattress that was not only used for sleeping, but for hiding money under the mattress. And yes, they spoke of the social woman, the woman in high society, who used to cut style on the men they felt were beneath their class. Class was a big time word back then, boy. Cecil recalled a certain woman bluntly telling a man, "You are not in my category. You are not in my category." I remember the time when all the fathers asked the men who were interested in their daughters the famous question, "What is your intention, boy?" And you had to answer that on the spot. What is your intention? They brought to life stories of the old estates in Grenada and the so-called big shot estate owner. The estate owner, one was called Mr. Nayak, who once owned many acres of land in Grenada. The huge estate, great houses were discussed, and mention were made of a certain estate owner from Britain. Grenadian called him Shotela, who lived in St. John many years ago. They spoke of Mr. T.E. Noble Smith and a butcher named Boudet. I listened as they related how Englishmen brought all the English customs with them to Grenada. They never failed to have their maids make them their favorite cup of tea and rang a bell to let them know when dinner was served. English estate owners and their wives arrived for their meal dressed up as if they were going to church, as if they were heading for church. I learned of a time in Grenada when the banks hired only white or light-skinned people. Well, thank God for Gary, who made a great change by his work that he did in Grenada. Yeah, remember him for that. It was a period when skin color and class went a long way in deciding one's prominence, your position in the society. Cecil noted that although conditions were improved, the playing field was still not really that level. Certain things still exist that remind him of that time. Not too much, but yes, it's not all a level playing field still. I gave as topics on the lighter side, using the word lighter again, were brought up. Occasionally, I asked for an explanation of a matter, something I didn't really understand. But it was just satisfying to sit there and to listen to them. I laughed when a big argument broke out, man. Argument burst out over whether a dentist should be called a doctor. Cecil shouted that since anybody could take a tooth, what am I saying? He said that anyone can pull out a tooth. he was not inclined to refer to a dentist as a doctor. I could just take a damn piece of rope or a little piece of string or something like that, a little string, and pull out a tooth. You're calling a dentist a doctor. The trivial old talk continued as Bogart recalled the time he was an overseer on an estate in Grenada and he caught a man stealing watergrass. He wanted to Lego to planas and a bull pistol on the man, but you know what? He let the guy go with a stern warning not to steal again. And I listened when a tale was resurrected. I listened. It concerned an estate manager who used to show off plenty better than everybody else. And he used to show off on a man he felt was not in his class. Again, popular term back then, the class system, and it still exists. Don't fool yourself, it still exists. And he said to the man, well, look at you. You don't have nutmeg land. You don't have cocoa land. All you're fit to do is to bid Mr. Harold Donkey. They spoke of a fella from Grenada who went to live in California, and he often visited them. He visited them in Brooklyn and came all dressed up like a cowboy. If you see the man, boy, cowboy hat and so on. Tall cowboy hat, cowboy shoes. The hat like the one John Wayne, the movie star, used to wear in the movies as El Dorado. That man was a great talker. You know, there are some people, when you hear they start to talk, you don't have to say anything. You can't get a word in. He was such a person. Great talker. And a great liar too. Much of what he said had to be taken with a grain of salt. A big grain of salt. Now they recall his tale about the time he fought in Vietnam and blazed his way out of an ambush. He told them the story. Although the man never served in the military, but he filled the ears with all kind of tall and imagined tales of his combat heroics in Vietnam, place he never even visited. When he told them of a time, boy, he removed all the nuts and bolts from a car in Grenada. I told them that also. And everyone wondered, boy, how this man go put back this car together? He boasted how quickly he did so. And with one turn of the key, the switch, the car started. Right then, the car started, one turn. Now, while they played the game, I was occasionally asked to go and check on a pot of curry goat and rice that was cooking on the stove. I would do so very quickly, but hurriedly return back to hear more old talk. You know, I like old talk. And to answer questions about events that took place in Grenada after they left. Their references were many. They pointed out how the struggles, how Grenadians, the immigrants, early immigrants to England, pointed out the struggle, and those who went to Aruba to work in the oil refineries there in Aruba. They spoke of the mistrust of politicians everywhere and the schemes that politicians and other men and women used to con their fellow men and women. And they brought up the topic of their old age, because it is said once a man, twice a child, and if Papa God spares our lives, sooner or later we'll reach a stage when we'll be considered old. They spoke of their lives in the United States. Cecil said that, I thought of going and live in Grenada again, but since I have one foot in the grave and the other one on a banana peel, it don't make no sense. Too late for me. And they mentioned the medication they had to take for the ailments and the medication that were more readily available in Brooklyn and other parts of the United States and even Canada than in the Caribbean. So they preferred to reside in the cold. The chat ended when they were tired with their card game. It was time to save the rest of the Brango the Old Talk for another day. Anthony Wendell the Riggs, unedited just from my mouth. Pardon any mistakes, errors, and you can add your piece. God bless.